I'll send a link of this to Dave Ivy real quick. Yes. Playing on the good old PlayStation. Playing some Grand Theft Auto so you don't have to look at my ugly mug while I'm jabbering in your ear. This epically long tale of my early 20s. This happened in, I believe, probably 2000. Yes, it was 2000. It would have been taking place roughly between May of 2000 and, well, by the time the story is done, it'll have to be in a few parts, but it'll end in October of 2000. So that's the time frame. Get really slowly starting to talk about what happened. So, sometime in the middle of summer or late spring, I was living in Spokane on Lincoln Street with my buddy Brian Stone and my homeboy Andrew Huffman, and we were living. Also was there was Brian's baby mama, Tosh, and his son, Riley, which was probably about 6 months old, in a room that's about this big. Like the whole place was a room this big. Yeah. And so one day me and Brian got back from, I don't know what we were doing, but we had gotten back from whatever we were doing. And we see this kid standing outside, like watching his family unpack his car, or unpack the moving van, because they're moving in. And like, I remember like my first impression was, this guy looks like the most unmotivated hippie I've ever seen in my entire life. He's just standing there with his hands like in his overalls, like this, like his hands all like up in his overalls, and just standing there watching everything move. What is wrong with this car, dude? Dude. Okay. And so we start talking to him. We're like, hey, what's going on? We introduce ourselves, and he comes over, and he starts hanging out, and he eventually starts telling us about the Rainbow Gathering and how totally awesome it is. And it's the Rainbow Gathering is the Rainbow Family of Living Light, and they camp out on National Forest property. And they do all this without permits, and they don't allow money in, and everything's done by barter. It's just it's a big prayer for peace during the 4th of July, and big huge hippie festival. And you don't really have to pay anything. Like when you go there, you don't have, it doesn't cost money to get in, and like you end up getting food every night from like somewhere. It's usually the big like dinner circle in the middle of a big field, and all the different kitchens like bringing all this different amounts of food. So like you're never hungry at the gathering. If you are, it's your own fault for not eating. And so Brian moving out of the apartment anyways, and me and Huffman decided to go to the Rainbow Gathering with our buddy Justin, who we called Jesus because he looked a lot like Jesus. Like he looked like Jesus Christ in a pair of overalls. And he's way into like really killer fucking electronic music. And like the first night he like came over and hung out, he's like, hold on a sec, I gotta go get this CD. I want to see if you guys like this kind of music. And he like played the music, and I was like, I do. Yeah. And so Justin had just moved up from California, from Orange County, California, and he was like going to the Rainbow Gathering to meet some of his buddies that he knew down in California. And it's like pretty much before internet, a tiny bit of internet, but it's nothing like. And so to get like information and like to talk to him and stuff, there wasn't cell phones and shit. Like he knew that fucking Jacob to the gathering, and like knew roughly what time. But like when you get to the gathering, it's like the size of fucking Castle Rock.
Yeah.
Out in the woods. Hundreds of camps, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of camps. And we ended up like walking up into this campsite and just to smoke a bowl. And my buddy Justin, when we got there, was like, asked the first dude that we were smoking a bowl with, like, hey, have you met a guy named Jacob? He goes by the name Rambler. And he's like, yeah, actually, that's his tent right there. And I was like, no fucking way. And like totally found all of his buddies like right off the bat. Like right off the bat, dude.
So funny. Just by chance.
Yeah, just by chance. I immediately traded a drum.
Best trade you ever made.
Best trade I ever made. Went about our business, so we stayed there for weeks. It was there forever. And did his whole check thing. And he came back like the day that I was like leaving without him, and I was fucking so irate that Huffman was not back. Like Huffman had been gone for like a week or two, just gone, didn't know where he was. Like he was still traveling around Montana with a bunch of dudes, like just out in the woods like every day. Like, well, like this is all Huffman stuff. I don't know what to do with it. I gotta take off. Like the gathering's over, everybody's leaving. I gotta hitch a ride with somebody to like get out of here. And here's all Huffman stuff. And then I can see Huffman marching into the gathering with
Such marching.
dragging, furiously stacking and plastic cart. It was like a plastic, like radio flyer type cart that he was like using to like cart around like all this stuff that he had brought with him.
Yeah.
And it broke or something like that. And like the guy that he was getting a ride with, like Huffman, like a person by the name of, and I shit you not, Chicken Man. That's like all he would tell us his name was Chicken Man. He was just like a gangly ginger kid from like Ohio who was probably like in his, at this time I was 20. I was 20 at this time. Anyways, Chicken Man was this like gangly ginger from Ohio who had this chicken head sewn onto his sweatshirt. Now mind you, like everybody at the gathering goes by like pseudonyms or aliases pretty much.
Yes.
My alias was Wasabi.
Because you have the wasabi hookup.
Yeah, because I had a bottle of wasabi sauce and I squirted that shit on everything because it was like a lot of the food's just bland as fuck. It's all like vegan. And what was I saying? So we got in his car, ended up making our way from Montana up to Spokane, met some pimp in a hotel. When we got to this hotel in Spokane, there was a pimp. Like, how did we meet him? Like, okay, they were like out in the hallway doing some shit. Like, I think that they were. Yeah, he was like a pimp. He probably like sold a lot of crack, but he was like a legit like pimp who was just partying at the hotel. He said that he'd rather just spend money at a hotel and party and not have to clean up after his mess. And so he had all this booze and like just all the weed anybody could want to smoke.
Just fucking brilliant.
And man, this guy needs to leave me alone. So yeah, we went out and said, oh, they were having a pop in the hallway. That's what they were doing. Like when we like come out of the elevator, you know, like been in the woods for fucking like 5 weeks.
Probably penis.
Not fucking showered at all.
God.
Yeah, dude, not fucking showered.
I smell my family.
Smelling like fucking the rainbow gathering, dude.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like the elevator doors opens and we see these like all these hookers out in the hallway fucking having a full-on popcorn fight. And we're just like these like the black pimp dude's just like, where the fuck do you guys come from? You look like you came from out of the woods. And we're like, we did, man. We just spent 5 weeks in the woods. And he was like, oh, come over here and party. And like, so we went over to his like hotel room and like drank up his alcohol and smoked his weed, ate his pizza. He like legit offered all three of us like any of his ladies. He's like, if you guys want to take any of my ladies in the back room, and, we're like, no. Like, I don't want an STD.
Super kind gesture, though. I mean, like, that's really crazy.
Yeah, for real, dude.
Like,
So we partied there that night, and then we came back to Kelso, and basically said hello to my parents. Hadn't seen them in a way too long of time for any child to not contact their parents. Gave my mom a legit ulcer and shit. They thought that I had joined a cult. They thought the Rainbow Gathering was a full-on cult.
oh, I can see your parents thinking that.
Yeah. And like, if you went by the disinformation that was like found online at the time, like, it could possibly sound like a cult if they ever asked you for anything.
Nah, I just want you to chill.
Yeah. They just want a quiet place to pray for peace during the 4th of July for veterans that don't want to hear fireworks. And hippies. And so, anyways, we come to Kelso. We end up staying in our buddy's house. One of our pals may or may not have broken a window to get, or went through a window to get into the house. And I think maybe cracked a window or something like that. Like, technically breaking and entering was a long time ago, so it doesn't even matter. Like, anything that I say now is like statute of limitations is way up. So we're hanging out at the dude's house. His name's fucking scumbag fucking Dave. And yeah, I didn't fucking like scumbag Dave. So like, Dave wasn't there. I didn't give a shit. I just wanted a place to crash. Dave wasn't there for a couple of days. It was like odd. Like, where the fuck is Dave, dude? Like, Huffman went and like inquired where the fuck he was at. Found out Dave was in jail. And his sister was like, what, did you guys like break into his apartment? And they're like, oh, fucking out. And so then we bounced, and then we went over to my other buddy's house. Anyways, like, Chicken Man, like, would never tell us his real name. And he was always being hella fucking sketchy. And our plan was to have him drive us to the Eugene Hempfest. And just one morning, fucking, we woke up and he was gone. Just like split. I have no idea what the fuck happened to him. He didn't have, like, he must have had his own gas money somewhat, but like, we never made sure, like, we always knew how far away we were and how far we were going, so we always made sure like he didn't have gas to ditch us.
Yeah.
And somehow ended up making our way to the Eugene Hempfest anyways. Can't remember how me and Huffman got down there. But went down there, ran into a guy that we knew from here named Richard Horton. And we like totally just like fucking partied it up at the Eugene Hempfest. And this was before like weed was legal. Pretty much, well, I guess it was legal in Washington for a little tiny bit before that. And but like, we can get like these totally awesome edibles called ganja goo balls that were like about the size of a tennis ball. Yeah. I mean, it was just like all sorts of like oats and whatever type of candy bars that like people can find. Oh wait, no, this is at the Hempfest. That was at the Rainbow Gathering. At the Hempfest, they had just like all sorts of different fucking food laced with weed that like, to where like, when me and Huffman were just like, if we're gonna eat food, we might as well eat all this weed food. And so I got to hear Jack Harris speak there. He's the guy that the weed is named after.
No.
Yes. So, ended up partying up. Okay, so when we were at the gathering, we had talked to these people that claimed that they were glass. Totally. And we were like making Eugene. So that's like what like to go down there. We ended up running Richard Horton and like partied with him for a few days at the Hempfest, and then on our way out, like Huffman was still bound and determined to like go track down this glass blowing shop in Eugene, whereas like talked to enough vendors to figure out that that guy was like full of shit, and like that wasn't happening. That wasn't a real thing. And I was like walking. I think I was like holding a sign, trying to like. There was another. There was a regional gathering because the one on the 4th of July is the national gathering. But they always at all times have a regional gathering going on somewhere, and I think it was going on in like Colorado. And we were trying to like. I was trying to get to Colorado at that point. Like me and Huffman had like split up, and I saw Richard Horton out in the parking lot, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I'm getting a ride on this hippie bus. We're gonna go to Belize and grow weed with for the government in Belize." And he was like, "They're totally like they were just at that place, that rainbow place that you were at." And so like, I went and talked to the guys, and they're like, "Yeah, you guys, if you want to come, there's room on the bus." So like, fucking jumped on the bus to Belize. Yeah. Like we went up to Portland first for some reason. I can't remember. Might have even like came up to Kelso to say like bye to my parents for a while. Cause I was like, I'm going fucking down south on this hippie bus. I don't think I did though. But we made our way back to Portland for some reason from Eugene. Oh, it was because Horton knew some people up in Portland that we needed to have dank connects with, and so we went up to Portland. And so we went from Portland down to Eugene, and we stopped in Eugene and met Ken Kesey. Got pictures of like me and Horton on the fucking further bus.
Yeah?
Yeah. He was making covers for VHS cassettes, like with the on like a record table with like paint.
Oh wow.
Like spin art for this like bootleg fucking album that he had from like the Grateful Dead, that he made the bootleg of the Grateful Dead back in the day, and he was like making covers for him. And so we're in Eugene for a tiny amount of time, and then we like made our way down into California, and we were gonna go to this big huge rave, and it was supposed to be in San Francisco, but then it got moved to Fresno by the time we like got down there and shit. It was called Cyberfest, and it was fucking huge, like so big. I mean, like entire Fresno County Fairgrounds, which makes our fairgrounds look like a fucking joke.
Yeah.
And it's like, this rave was like fucking expensive as shit. It was like $45-50 a person to get in. And then none of us hippies and broke motherfuckers. Like everybody on the bus but Richard was like rainbow-fied to where we just didn't give a fuck about money.
Yeah.
Like, nah, I don't give a shit. I don't like money. I didn't need it. Like, I can go spange up enough like money in a parking lot to go buy like 3 days worth of food in 20 minutes. And we got gas in like 10 minutes, and then we're like on our way. And I was like perfectly content with it at the time. And so we stopped at a library and used the internet to send these emails to separate like our own email account, and then sent these emails to the promoters claiming to be with a Northwest rave magazine, underground rave magazine, and we're like requesting to get like free tickets into the show. And didn't really even think that was gonna work. We ended up, like, we got there, we parked hella far away because there's just so many fucking people there. It was like a couple hundred DJs.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Like they had probably a good 15 rooms. So like we went around, and like the deal is when you spange, like you don't even ask people for the spare change. You ask them for a spare $5 or $20, because they'll end up giving you dollar bills if you ask for fives. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Do you have any change? People like dig in their pockets, literally thinking that like you're asking for some change.
No, 5 would be good.
Yeah, you got a spare $5 by any chance, dude? No, but I have $1. Excellent.
I'll take that.
Like using that, we went up to every single person that was out there selling ecstasy, and I was like, "You got a spare 20 I can have?" And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, trying to fucking raise up money to get into this fucking party. I know I have some money. Like, do you have a spare 20? I got one person to give me a spare 20. I got a couple of spare 5s. Like, we had money to get in. Me and Richard were walking around the perimeter of the fairgrounds. At this point, we're just like simply looking for water. Like, we're looking for anybody that had any water. We were gonna like buy their water.
Yeah.
Because it was the middle of dead ass fucking summer. It was like right at July 4th, probably the end of July.
Okay.
Hot as fuck. Especially
Especially-
like being from the Northwest,
Yeah.
and then going down to fucking Fresno, California. Yeah, it was just so hot. And so we were looking for water, and the door to the because it was on the Fresno Fairgrounds, and there's a National Guard armory that like is on the Fresno Fairgrounds. And so we're walking past it, and the door was open, and right inside the door, like 2 feet inside the door, was a water fountain. And I'm like, oh, fucking water. And so like we went in there and was like drinking up the water, and we saw like a National Guardsman walking past, like in uniform. Like he was just like there doing whatever. And on the other side of this big like alley, not a big hall. You know, on the other side of the armory building, you could see a door that was open, and on the other side of the door was like the rave being set up. And so I was like, dude, we'll just walk over there like we fucking own the place, and like we'll just get in. And like that's exactly what we did. Like walked straight across the fucking straight across the armory, bobbing our heads like Night at the Roxbury. And then like we promptly went inside and got like accosted by security, wanted to know where our passes was and where our booth was, and, like where the fuck we were supposed to be at. We're like, our passes are at our booth, it's right over that way. And we're like, I'm just trying to find the pisser. And he's like, the pisser's right over there. You need to get back to your booth and not have your, like, get your passes, because you'll be thrown out if we catch you out without your passes, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, okay, so they just went straight to the bathroom, into an outhouse, and like we sat there until it was fucking dark. It was so hot. Like I prayed.
The weltering in an outhouse.
It was new. Like it hadn't been used at all. I was like,
Still though, that's like a little hot.
yeah. I pretty much instantly, I think within the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh, I got to take off all my clothes because I was just sweating to death. And like I knew I was going to be in there for hours. And Richard's like, man, my fucking balls are so sweaty. I'm like, dude, I'm naked. He's like, what? I'm like, I got naked. I'm sweating too much. Like my clothes are going to be soaked all day. He's like, oh, that's a good idea. So like he did that too. And we just fucking sat in there for so long, dude. It took forever, what it seemed like, just an eternity. Until the party started and it was dark and like we could exit the place because there was like enough people in line. Because you know there was like the security guard that sits there and like watches all the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Like we didn't want to just like, oh, I never saw you guys go in. Where's your pass? It's like we went in and found the jungle room. And the guy that was running the eye candy for the jungle room, which is all the visual effects, like the little videos that play and whatnot, he was in charge of doing all that shit. And his name was Mike Edge. And he was from Dallas, Texas. He was a DJ down there. And we were just like, I was telling him about how we got in, because he was like, where's your fucking pass, dude? I was like, actually, we snuck in. And he was just like, really? I hate the fucking promoter here. How'd you sneak in? And so we told him. He was just like, that's cool as shit. You guys, you need some fucking passes, though. And he was like, come with me. And so like, let's follow him. And he just like goes and like hooks me up with a VIP pass. And Richard didn't believe his story, so he just like stayed behind, didn't get a VIP pass. And we went backstage, got like a bunch of snacks and shit. Along, and I looked down on the ground and I saw a big huge fucking bag of weed that was probably like a good quarter ounce. Like walking along, I look down, see this quarter ounce, I bend down, I pick it up. That looks excellent. I pick it up, and apparently had clenched my fist and did a fist pump in the air. On. Immediately after doing a fist. And fucking I have a cop grab my fucking wrist and goes, I'm not sure, but I was just down and it's like, here come down. I'm like, what? No, I'm like, if you even in my hand, you saw me just now pick it up. I'm like, this. Or you scoop in to pick it up and you clench your fist and pump your fist in the air. And in victory is what he said. And I'm like, fuck. And like, I knew full well that I did that exact shit. And that's when he fucking grabbed my wrist. And then he took me back into this little like, basically the dog pound is what it's called. And it was like this little police processing area inside the rave.
Yeah.
And so they like bring me in there, sniff me down with fucking drug dog, and then like sit me down, and they're like, so they're like, he's from Washington. I can hear these cops talking. And he's like, he's from Washington, man. He's like, what are you doing down here? I was like, I came down here for the party. And he's like, you came all the way from Washington for this? And I was like, yeah. And then I could hear him go, dude, he's not gonna fucking show up for court. Like, don't even like, just write him a release. They're like, is this even illegal in Washington? I'm like, what, weed? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, it's illegal all over America, dude. And he's like, he's like, but you guys have medical marijuana. I'm like, yeah, but I don't have a medical marijuana card. I couldn't.
Like, do it yourself.
Yeah, I'm like, I couldn't have it in a place like this in Washington. It's not like that. And he's just like, okay, well, we don't know. And he's like,
I don't know.
he's like, so we're, he's just like sits me back down. And then this kid sits next to me who's like a couple years younger than me. And he's just high as fuck on ecstasy. And like, he's like, hey, where? It's you? In there. I'm like, they're not going to charge you because you're just not even from here. So they like figured you're not going to go to court. And like, I totally just imagined like I got caught with weed. I am going to jail now. Like that is just how I assumed it was going to work.
Yeah.
Like this is what happens when you get caught with marijuana before it's legal.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so he's sitting there, and I was like, so what? I was like, what'd they get you on? And he goes, oh, I kicked a bag of weed and picked it up, and as soon as I grabbed it, the fucking cop grabbed my arm and brought me in here. And I was like, that's exactly what the fuck, exactly what happened to me. I was like, I was like, did they find anything on you? He was like, yeah, I had 10,000 pills on me. 10,000 fucking hits of ecstasy this kid had on him. So they were like, a bait bag, somebody to pick it up so they could sit down. And like, that was like right after the like changed the rules on ecstasy for mandatory minimums so that it's like charged out the same exact weight for weight criminal offense heroin. In jail, you're gonna be in prison. It was right after that making ecstasy illegal as heroin, or as illegal as heroin. So the cops let me go. They give me the certificate of release that like I still have. I can find it. I've seen it like recently. I think since we moved. And immediately go back to the jungle area, to the jungle room to go find Mike, who was like I was hanging out with him by that. So, they're totally fine. Brings me backstage to watch AK-1200 spin, and I end up getting like all the fucking DJs that were spinning in that jungle room that night, like, or at least the vast majority of them. I got them all to sign my certificate of release. I'm like, can I have your signature? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, here, check this out. I got arrested here tonight for finding.
Look at me.
I'm like, and they let me go. And they're like, oh, right on. So, let's go ahead and pause this.
Okay.
We're gonna come back after a quick potty break. I'm back for part 2 of Story Hour with Curtis.
Better than any morning show I've ever